What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. And go ahead, let's strap in, guys. We got a long one here. I slacked off on my monthly watch videos, even though I started it in January. I did it in February, and then I slacked off immediately. So I'm going to rectify that situation. I'm going all the way from March through June, everything I watched during all of those months. I'm going to try to be brief. And I'm recording this through StreamYard. The only reason I'm telling you guys that is because I've had some issues with the internet through StreamYard or with my streaming. Every now and again, it'll freeze up. It comes right back, but I just wanted you guys to know that in advance. And the other thing I want you to know is that all the movies that I've done on my Movie Swap live streams, I'm going to give you the score of those movies and kind of briefly just I'll mention them, but not going to say a whole lot about them. I will leave the links in the description for all the movie swaps. So if you want my in-depth thoughts on those movies, you can go check those out. And I'm doing that really because there's so many movies here to talk about. I don't want to be any longer than I have to be. It's already going to be a pretty long process. So let's go ahead and get to it, guys. Again, like I said, we're going to start all the way back in March. And as you can see, here we go, the end of February. I'm going to start with a movie that I did with Bob on our movie swap. It was Embattled as about an MMA fighter. As you can see here, 3.5 stars. So again, pretty good movie. I really like it. 3.5, if you're not really familiar with my grading scale, 3.5 is a movie I did like. It's a good movie. Probably not a great movie, but I would grade it out as a 7. Just do the math, multiply the stars by 2 and you get a score out of 10 if that helps you out. The next movie was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I'll talk a little more about this one. 2.5 stars is what I give it, as you can see. For this one, it's the weakest of the Ant-Man movies for me. One of the weaker MCU movies, period. The comedy didn't land for me all the time. And then the tonal shifts between the comedy and the serious were jarring. They didn't flow smoothly. It made the movie kind of herky-jerky all the way through it. It never got any kind of, never had a good flow to it. There was saving grace here. Jonathan Majors was great as Kang the Conqueror. Michelle Pfeiffer was pretty good also in her role. Everybody else was just kind of doing their thing again. But yeah, 2.5 stars, weak movie for me out of the MCU. Hopefully the next entries are better. I still haven't seen the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet. I haven't seen that one yet, guys. So hopefully I'll get to see that one yet. I'm a little bit slow on that one somehow. Next one, another movie swap entry, Do the Right Thing here. I did that with Bob, also on movie swap, 5 stars, my favorite movie of all time. Moving on to Sound of Metal. Sound of Metal I did on movie swap with Tony from Basement Blues. 4 stars for me. Again, really enjoyed this movie. Great sound design, but go ahead and check out that one. Next movie was called The Soccer Football Movie. This one is one that I watched with my students. I taught first grade this past year, and every now and again, you just have a day or some time where you just get to watch a movie. And this was one of those days. And I put it on for them. They all seem to like it. I'm not the target audience. I understand that. But really, basically, it's Space Jam with soccer in it is what it is, guys. We get some, as it says here, when mysterious green slime monsters start popping out of soccer balls, all-star athletes, Zlatan, I can't even say those names, and Megan Rapinoe, who's real soccer players, they must team up with their 4 biggest fans to stop evil scientist Weird Al Yankovic from stealing their talent. Yes, Weird Al. Guys, what it is he basically goes around and steals the talent of the top soccer players in the world and plays against them. So yeah, it is Space Jam just with soccer. 2 stars for me. It wasn't as good as Space Jam, and I'm not even a big Space Jam fan. I don't like that movie that often. And then, yes, I'm talking about the Michael Jordan original. It's okay. But yeah, this was not as good as that. So 2 stars for the Soccer Football Movie. And next was a movie, Scream 6. And for this one, Scream is my favorite horror franchise. And this time we move into New York. And we get our two main characters played by Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera. They're sisters, of course, and they're in New York in college, and Ghostface starts killing their friends again. You know how this goes. And I really like the opening to this movie. That was pretty one of the best, one of my favorite openings in the franchise. The rest of the movie was pretty solid, wasn't great. The subway scene was fantastic. The bodega scene was fantastic. Those are my two favorite scenes, of course, and well, actually a lot of scenes because they were really some really tense moments. It just kind of fell down for me in the third act. It fell apart a little bit, but still a good movie. 3.5 stars for Scream 6. Next is Scarface, another movie I watched for Movie Swap. This one with Tony again, and this was 5 stars for me. One of my favorite gangster movies of all time. So definitely go check out that Movie Swap. And Tony went above and beyond the Call of Duty. He watched 3 movies actually for Movie Swap. We talked about them all briefly. We talked about Scarface a lot. That was the one we really focused on. But he also watched Dope, so I did rewatch that. 4 stars, excellent film there. He also watched Juice, but I had seen that movie about 1,000 times, so no need to rewatch that one. But yeah, check out Dope and check out Movie Swap there. Another Movie Swap entry was next. Empire. This one stars John Leguizamo. 3.5 stars for me. This one was introduced to me by my boy Nick from Movie AV Impulse for Movie Swap, and I introduced him to Lady Snowblood, and for me that one's a 4-star movie. And next was a trip to the theaters. My wife and I, we went and saw Creed 3. Scream 6 was also a trip to the theaters, but I went and saw that one by myself. Wifey doesn't do horror, guys. So Creed 3, excellent entry into the Rocky franchise, the Rocky/Creed franchise. This time we get a guy from Adonis's past. He is out of jail and trying to get a leg up in life. He's an old friend of Adonis, and he's played by Jonathan Majors. And as shortly we find out that he has ulterior motives. He really wants everything that Creed has. He's coming for the crown, so to speak, and Majors is outstanding again. So I will say this about Jonathan Majors: regardless of the troubles that he's found himself in when he's not on screen, whatever happens with that happens, and we'll deal with that at another time. But for the body of work that he has already accumulated, he's proven to be an outstanding actor, and here an outstanding villain again. At twice this year with Kang from Scream 6, and yeah, the lots of anime influences here from Creed 3 also, as Michael B. Jordan is known to be a big anime fan. So if you are an anime fan, you can see lots of those things. I think there's some clips on YouTube showing how he emulated some of even the fight scenes from anime, even though it's boxing. Check those clips out. Next movie is Claudine. That's a Criterion Collection movie. I watched this for Movie Swap, and I believe this was the monkey. I think this was the monkey that I watched it with, and this was 3.5 stars for me. Again, a really good movie that I initially rated higher, which is why I recommended it for Movie Swap. But on second watch, it came down a little bit, but still really good. So yeah, check that one out. And on the other end, he had me watch a movie called My Name is Sarah. And that one, a solid movie. Again, 3 stars is a movie I did like. So anything under 3 stars of the movies, I really don't care for that much. And anything 3 stars and up are movies that I like. My Name is Sarah, again, another Movie Swap entry, 3 stars there. And I believe that, again, that was with the monkey. Next, a movie I watched on my own called Senior. And if you're not familiar with that, this is the documentary Robert Downey Jr. did about his father, who was also in Hollywood. He had a long career directing lots of indie movies, and it's also about their relationship with one another. And it is an excellent doc, one of the best ones I've seen so far this year. 4 stars for Senior. It's on Netflix if you are interested in that. Next is another movie I found on Netflix, even though this is not a Netflix original, at least I don't think. and that is Lyle Lyle Crocodile. And it's got some interesting parts to it. It's really cheesy. Again, I know I'm not the target audience for it, but as a film, it just didn't quite work. I'm going to stop saying I'm not the target audience because, you know, my opinion on it is my opinion on it, and I can find great value in movies that are meant for young kids. And this one was not one that I found great value in. I thought it was okay. 2.5 stars for La La Crocodile. Everything in that movie that happens, you know what it is. I mean, immediately you know what's going to happen. Next movie is I Want to Dance with Somebody. This was the Whitney Houston biopic that came out, and I was not a fan, guys. Just it just didn't work for me on any level. Uh, the performances were mediocre, and it's sad because the directors, as someone I really admire, really expect, Casey Lemons or Cassie. I always botch her name, but in this case, it just didn't work. It was really cliff notes on a lot of Whitney Houston things. A lot of things were left out, and sometimes they kind of made her out to be uh, maybe a bit more of a monster than we thought. And in any event, it just didn't quite work. I didn't feel like I got a holistic view of Whitney Houston. I felt like it was a very one-sided deal. So 1.5 stars for me. And this is coming from somebody who's not the hugest Whitney Houston fan. I realize that she has a powerful voice, one of the best of all time, but her music is good. I have lots of songs that I like of her. She's just not one of my all-time favorites. But in this case, I didn't think the movie did her justice. And with a lot of biopics, what I'm finding is the more familiar I am with someone, the less likely I am to like their biopic because there's more that I know that I'm looking for. And that might have been the case here. So call me biased on that one if you must. Next, another trip back to the theaters, John Wick Chapter 4, and 4 stars on this one. And just because it's so much fun, story wise, and the way the movie plays out, yeah, it can be really repetitive. It's just action, 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 action. Talk for a few minutes while we figure out John Wick's next move, and then action, action, action. But the action is done so well that I really was into the movie for its entire runtime. And it's a pretty long movie. It might be the longest of all the John Wick movies, if I'm not mistaken. And I really had fun with it. Only real drawback, what keeps it from going even higher, is the cheat that they came up with, basically for John Wick and a lot of other characters with the bulletproof suits, and it can be a bit much. So still 4 stars because it's just insanely fun to watch. Next movie was Summertime. I watched this one with Tim Talks Talkies, or for Tim Talk Talkies, and our movie swap. This one from 1955, as you can see, one of the older movies that I watched in March, and it's a solid movie, good movie. I'll let you go watch that movie swap to figure out why it's not a higher rating from me, but it is a good, solid movie. And moving up is next was the last movie of March that I watched, and the movie that I had Tim watch, and that is The Five Heartbeats, one of my favorite musicals or movie-based movies. It's not really a musical in that we're not walking around singing dialogue all over the place. But 5 stars for that one. More movie swap stuff. This was with Walter Jonesing, Walter Jones of Jonesing with Movies, Jonesing for Movies. Sorry, guys. And he had me watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Richard Linklater is the director here. And he is a director I just don't vibe with, guys. And this was no exception. The movie just kind of meanders along. Terry Gilliam, I'm sorry, not Richard Linklater, Terry Gilliam. And Terry Gilliam is very hit or miss for me. And this one was kind of a miss, but it's one that I will admit to. I need to watch it again to see if it gets better for me. Let me put it that way. I do need to watch it again. So 2 stars again, but you can definitely go watch that movie swap. And the other movie there was The Eyes of My Mother, which is the movie I had him watch. 4 stars for me there, horror movie. It's a modern movie, 2016. If you can see that, I'll pull it up. 2016, but it is filmed in black and white. Just forewarning, because I know some people, black and white movies just not their thing. The next movie, Lady in the Water, and I watched this one for Movie Swap with Derek of Pure Hangout, and I'm gonna go ahead and change this score, guys. So it's a fairy tale, almost a deconstruction of the fairy tale, as I spoke with him about it, and I the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I like it. What are my initial thoughts was right after I watched it, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it the third star. So Lady in the Water gets a recommendation for me. Next movie is Juanita, and this was a movie I just randomly picked one night. Again, I think this was Netflix too. I just randomly picked one night. Alfred Woodard is the star, and I was looking for something to watch. Didn't feel like standing at my collection for 20, 30 minutes trying to figure something out. And so I turned this one on, and she's a mom, and she has grown kids. And as you can see here, she's fed up with her deadbeat grown kids. And now I didn't mean to highlight all that, but there you go, deadbeat grown kids. And she's got a son who really does nothing, a daughter who's got a child that basically she makes grandma babysit all the time so she can go hang out. And Alfred Woodard's character is, of course, the Juanita, and she's had enough and just takes her money, her savings, and decides, you know what, I'm running away at least for a little while, going on a trip, and she does that, and basically it's a journey of self discovery, and it's a pretty solid movie. 3.5 stars. Woodard is great as always, so definitely check it out if you are a fan of Alfred Woodard. Next movie was the one lots of people talk about, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This is the slasher flick based on Winnie the Pooh. Since it went public domain, everybody just went crazy, and it's not a good film objectively. I mean, Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, they look horrible, but it's fun. It's just fun to watch. You can turn your brain off. 3 stars there. Not really one that I not one I'm going to return to often, but I had a good time with it. After that, I watched Three Amigos for a movie swap with 4K D Ray. And Three Amigos is a movie somehow I just never watched all these years, and I would say a 2 star movie for me. And the comedy just didn't land with me, which is the bottom line of it. Again, you can go watch that. And sorry guys, I'm dealing with a bit of a cough, so I'm gonna take a sip of something. But comedy didn't really agree with me. I will bump it up a bit. I do like it a little better, but not a lot. So I would say a 2.5 star movie, not a 2 star movie. I think on Movie Swap I bumped it up to 3, maybe even 3.5. But then after thinking about it after that, it's like, nah, you know what? 2.5 is about right. So let's go ahead and stick with that for our final score on the Three Amigos. Next was a movie called We Have a Ghost. And this one was the interesting movie with David Harbour. You can see right here starring as the ghost. We get a family that's moved into a house, and the main character is this kid here, Jallo Jahi Diallo Winston. I've seen him in a few movies, and he was really good in Charm City Kings. I barely remember him in Queen and Slim. He was there. We Have a Ghost. I'm sorry, The Upside. I think he was Kevin Hart's son in that one. And Proud Mary, he was the kid that Taraji P. Henson is discovering. And I'm trying to remember who he was in the New Edition movie. But anyway, here he's the main character, kind of a nerd, kind of an outcast kind of character. Him and his dad don't really see eye to eye. His dad played by Anthony Mackie. And they've just moved into this new house away from his old friends. Of course, he's got an older brother that's adjust a lot easier. But lo and behold, he goes into the attic and discovers that they have a ghost named Ernest, played by David Harbour. And it's kind of a satire on today's going, things going today with social media and all. Pretty solid movie. 3 stars from me on We Have a Ghost. The next movie is Snatch, and that is the other movie. That's the movie I had KB watch for our, or not KB, for KD Ray. Shout out to KB though, always there, always supporting, and always great conversations when you go to his channel. But this one I had a 4KD Ray watch. Snatch, 4 stars for me there. Another 4-star movie here was Missing. That was the next movie I watched, and I really did enjoy this one, guys. If you saw Searching, this is I'd say right on par with Searching, maybe even better. In this case, it is not a child that's missing; it is the mom. The mom is played by Nia Long. Storm Reed is the daughter who's starting to look for, wondering what's going on. Mom went on vacation with her boyfriend, and they go to Colombia, and of course he doesn't come home. So the plot is set in motion from there. Really solid movie, really tense. Again, 4 stars from here for Storm Reed. Excellent, excellent for Missing. So definitely check that one out. Next is All Quiet on the Western Front and Boomerang, and I kind of mentioned these together. These are 2 more movies I did for Movie Swap. This one was with Sue from Movies and Sue, and All Quiet is the movie that she introduced me to, and I was really, frankly, blown away with this one, guys. I really, really enjoyed All Quiet on the Western Front, and then the movie I introduced to her was Boomerang. And Boomerang's 3.5 stars for me. Really good movie. That's another one of those, probably a 4. If you know what, let's just go ahead. Let's not beat around the bush here. Let's just go ahead and fix that back to a 4. Definitely one of a unique movie in Eddie Murphy's filmography. But I'll let you go ahead and watch that Movie Swap with Sue to see what we're talking about there. Next movie was Trouble. And this one is about a dog who is bougie, for lack of a better term. Pampered is what it says up here. And that is his name, Trouble. And he basically winds up out of the house without his leash and lost. So he's got to, in the hood, so to speak, with the other dogs, and got to learn how to survive. It's cute. 2.5 stars for me. It's got its flaws. Low budget for one. Storytelling's a little bit off. Voice acting, the animation is all kind of cheap. But like I said, for kids, I did show this to students, and yeah, they liked it well enough. 2.5 stars. I don't think they loved it, but hence the 2.5. The next movie after that, another trip to the theater. This was another solo trip, and this was Evil Dead Rise. And I did enjoy Evil Dead Rise, guys. It's I would say probably one of the weaker movies in the Evil Dead franchise, but it's still a really solid film. Of course, we have a mom and her 2 kids. They're at home, and she gets visited by her sister. And mom is not doing well, as we find out soon enough. There's some, she gets possessed by some bloodthirsty demons, as it says right here, bloodthirsty demons. And she basically goes about trying to kill everybody. And we watch it from there. It's just a fun movie. Really, really gory if you're into that. 3.5 stars for me for Evil Dead Rise. Next movie is another animated movie that I showed students here. And guys, what's happening here at this time of the school year for me is there was testing. We have testing, yearly testing, like a lot of schools do. And even in first grade, we have it at my school. So during testing week, we test in the morning and kind of let the kids relax a little bit in the afternoon. So this is where we watched a lot of movies here for this time. And Over the Moon is one. I had seen this before and really just wanted to revisit it, even though I think some of my kids had seen it 80 times. I was like, I want to watch this one. So made an executive decision, and it's a pretty fantastic movie. 4 stars, as you can see for me. We have a little girl who her mom has passed away, even though this is not a Disney movie, that is the Disney way. Her mom has passed away, and dad is about to remarry, and she's having a hard time coping, and she leans into the stories her mom used to tell her about a woman who lives on the moon and a goddess who lives on the moon, and she decides to try to build a rocket to go and find this lady and help maybe bring mom back. Sorry, guys, but If you haven't seen this one, it is really good. If you're into musicals or not into musicals, I warn you because it is a musical. 4 stars for Over the Moon. Another one of those movies, guys, was Yes Day. Yes Day is Jennifer Garner is the mom in this movie, and she's kind of a hard nosed, hard edged mom. And her kids, she's always telling her kids no. Dad is kind of a pushover. Edgar Ramirez plays the dad. She's kind of a pushover. And Jenna Ortega actually plays the daughter. I saw this movie first last year. I think it was last year. And that was probably the first thing that I saw Jenna Ortega in, because I saw it before I saw X and anything else she was in. And she was the daughter, and she was okay, nothing spectacular. But the premise is, Yes Day is a day where the kids the parents cannot say no for 24 hours to whatever the parents or whatever the kids ask them. And it's a cool premise, fun movie, really predictable, but it works. 2.5 stars, good time passer. I'll say that. Uh, Nothing that's gonna blow you away. Kids will like it because they get their way for 24 hours. We know that's not how the world works, but solid movie nonetheless. Next is a movie that I really, really enjoy. I think it's one of the more underrated movies of 2022, and that is Hung for Jesus, Save Your Soul. Yes, all of that is the title. And this is kind of it's a mockumentary. Uh, Sterling K. Brown is a televangelist of a mega church, and there was some sort of scandal at the beginning of the movie. We don't know what that scandal is. We know that it was a scandal bad enough that his church essentially fell apart. He's disgraced now, and he wants to make a comeback. He's trying to rebuild, and he wants to have that process documented. So he hires a documentarian to come film it. And Regina Hall plays his wife, or the first lady of the church. And it's a really pretty brilliant satire, as far as I'm concerned, of religious life, particularly Black religious life. Also of those big mega churches and what goes on behind the scenes. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. 4 stars for me for this one. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend seeking it out. And if for nothing else, the performances from Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall are just amazing. Die Hard was the next movie I watched. So in my house, we're Kevin Hart fans to a point. It's interesting. Like I'm a fan of his stand up. I do really like his stand up. His movies, he's kind of hit or miss. Some of them could be pretty good, some of them not so good, and he can be abrasive depending on the role, because he's always, no matter what, doing the Kevin Hart shtick, whether he's live action, animated, the main character, the sidekick. He's always just doing Kevin Hart shtick. It's just how it fits into a particular movie. And in this movie, it wasn't too bad, but I can definitely see. Matter of fact, I'm going to even drop it a bit. But in this movie, he plays essentially himself. A stylized version of himself, I should say. And he is an actor, but he's tired of being the sidekick. He's tired of being the sidekick to The Rock and Ice Cube and whoever, and he wants to be the main action hero in the movie. School where he can learn to do that. The school happens to be taught by John Travolta, who's not playing John Travolta, he's playing another character. And then, of course, it's one of those deals where it's pretend, but then it's real, and that kind of thing. And it's not terrible, not great, but I'm gonna drop it. I had it at 3 stars. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it at 2.5. I figured that's straight down the middle. That's about what it is, what it's worth. Next movie is Cocaine Bear. And Cocaine Bear, I'm looking at this and I'm already gonna raise it, because this movie, the thing is just insanely fun. You can say it's a bad movie, or you can say the CGI looks crappy or whatever it is, but it's just fun, and it's they say based on a true story, guys. Don't feed into that. That's garbage. I mean, yes, there was once a bear who they found with cocaine in the system that was completely dead. So nothing, nothing else is taken from that story. Um, but here is basically Jaws with a bear, and and as a comedy. So it's really, if you go in looking to be scared, there's some tense moments and there's gore all over the place, but it's not one that's gonna scare you. It's just gory, so you might cringe a lot from that. But I just had an insanely fun time watching Cocaine Bear. 4 stars. Hope I wouldn't mind a Cocaine Bear too, and they kind of left it open for that. So fingers crossed. Maybe we get one. Maybe we don't. April ends with Copland, and May begins with The Raid. These are two movies that I watched for Movie Swap with Huck, and Copland was a very pleasant surprise, and that's what I'm going to raise here. I really did enjoy my time with Copland. Sylvester Stallone, he plays a cop in New Jersey, which is right across the river, of course, from New York, and a lot of New York cops live in this little town, and it so happens that they're all corrupt, and this is kind of their area that they're running and dealing with whoever they're dealing with. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, go check out that movie swap with Huck to hear more of my thoughts on Copland. As it stands, 4 stars for me. The Raid, it was the movie that I had him watch, The Raid Redemption. If you're not quite clear on what I'm talking about, but if you've seen it, you are. And one of my favorite movies, especially one of my favorite action movies of all time. So 5 stars there. Next two movies I watched for a movie swap uh, with James from 20th and 21st Movies, and he recommended me to watch Play Misty for Me, which was Clint Eastwood's directorial debut. 3.5 stars from their solid movie, and I had him watch Inside Man, which is a Spike Lee joint. This one stars Denzel Washington and Clive Owen and Julia Jodie Foster. Woo, good. I managed to get it before I got down here. Christopher Plummer, Willem Dafoe, Chiwetel Ejiofor. Lots of people here that at the time in 2006 when it came out, I was familiar with most of them, but Chiwetel Ejiofor I was not at that time. And fantastic movie, 4 stars. Again, check out that movie swap with Huck. Next, I was just happened to be looking at my shelves, guys, and I hadn't seen this movie. It's been sitting on my shelf in my collection for years, and that's V.I. Warshawski with uh, Kathleen Turner, and it's they were trying to at some point after Romance in the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, they were kind of trying to make her a a lead actress. Well, she was a lead actress, but they were kind of trying to steer her towards more action-packed kind of movies. And this one was okay. It was solid. She's a PI, basically every cliched PI in movies, except she was a woman instead of a slubby guy. She was a slubby woman, so to speak. And she winds up, her new boyfriend gets killed, and has a daughter, and she winds up basically protecting the daughter from the mob and trying to find out what's going on. Pretty solid movie, 3 stars for VR Wachowski. Not one that I would say you have to see, but hey, if you want to see an action movie with a woman, or it's not really an action, more like a crime drama, crime dramedy, because it is some comedy into it. Next couple of movies, these are ones I watched with Derek from Convicted Cinephile, and he had me watch Bubba Hotep, and Bubba Hotep. I will go ahead and bump that. It's one of those things with movie swap. What happens is I'll watch a movie, and even if I don't like it, or if I do like it, talking to someone else about it can kind of give you a new perspective on it. And this one gave me a little bit more perspective on it. So I still don't love the movie, but it is one that I can look at and be like, okay, you know what? There's something there. So maybe I can go back and give it a look. As it stands now, I'm gonna just bump it up to 2.5 stars. Um, Again, you can hear my thought process going in that movie swap. I had Derek watch Hoodlum, and for me, Hoodlum's a 4-star movie. If unfamiliar, Lawrence Fishburne uh, plays. Excuse me, sorry guys. Lawrence Fishburne plays Bumpy Johnson. We got Tim Roth. We got Vanessa Williams, Andy Garcia, Cicely Tyson, Sean McBride, Clarence Williams III, and Loretta Devine, Queen Latifah. We got all sorts of stars in this movie. But yeah, 4 stars for me for Hoodlum, gangster movie set in Prohibition era and Harlem. So we'll see Lawrence Fishburne bumping heads with a lot of other figures in that movie. Next movie is Air, and Air is the movie that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck directed, and Matt Damon is in. He's a star, Jason Bateman. And this is Viola Davis, of course. This is a movie about how Nike came to sign Michael Jordan back in the 80s when he was coming out of college. For me, the Matt Damon and all the acting was really good. Chris Tucker's also in this movie. All the acting was excellent in the movie. The story just didn't quite work for me. It's kind of herky jerky, and I thought them working the entire movie around having someone have play Michael Jordan, because I don't know if it was a conscious choice, or I know the story Ben Affleck gives is that, you know, he thought that having someone play Michael Jordan would be distracting. I'm honest, I think that's BS. I think that's garbage. We've got somebody playing every person in a movie, every famous person. If someone can play Gandhi, someone can play Martin Luther King, someone can play Abraham Lincoln. If someone it's just ludicrous and then, oh, you know, Michael Jordan is this untouchable character, nobody should play him. It worked to the detriment of the story in this case, because basically he would be in rooms and you're kind of showing him in shadows and from behind and blurry in the background, and he's not saying anything, even though this is all about his future. As domineering as Michael Jordan's mom might have been, I am positive, I'm 100% positive, and I've never met Michael Jordan or his mom, but I'm 100% positive that there was some conversations between him and her that happened that would have benefited this movie. And there were definitely times when he was in the room with Nike execs that I'm sure he was asked questions and spoke more than he's given credit for. Here, it's just kind of it's setting him aside and making him look completely imbecilic, might be a word that I would use. That he's just kind of, whatever mom says, he's just going to nod. There's not any real pushback, even though we're told in the movie, and it is fact, that he was not on board with Nike at first. He was really a bigger fan of Adidas because that was what's hot at the time. And it just completely just didn't work for me. It just completely kind of ruined the movie for me. Took me out of things. I will admit, again, all of the acting is amazing. It's just writing around the character that the movie is most affecting, that the story rather is most affecting, was a turnoff for me. So 2.5 stars for Air, and I know a lot of you guys loved it, but that's where I'm falling on that one. And we are going to continue in May. So we got long way to go, guys. And next is this movie called Rye Lane. And this one I never heard of. I didn't know anything about it. And my youngest daughter, who's home from college, she put it on one night. And she'll watch she'll just kind of look at something and just watch it, whatever. She has very wide range in movies that she gets into. And in this case, I had never heard of this movie, but we got a couple of young people here, young folks here, as it says, 20-somethings. And they just broke up, not broke up with each other. They each had a breakup, and they happened to meet and hit it off as maybe a little bit strong of a word, but then, you know, they decide that they have some common ground and how their exes, or how they perceive their exes, and decide to kind of help each other out. And of course, it's a rom-com, so you kind of know where it's going, but the way this is done time with this movie, it's a British movie, if I'm not mistaken. I know their accents were definitely British. We had a lot. We had took me a bit to get into those. South London, yeah, so definitely British. Um, really good movie. 3.5 stars. I think this is I can't remember if this is Netflix or Hulu. But yeah, check out Rye Lane if you get a chance. If you're kind of into a rom com but want something maybe a little bit different, uh, this fits the bill. Next movie is waiting on my laptop to get there. As you can look up here and see that it's taking forever to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. While it's doing that, guys, I'm gonna try to get more consistent with these. Just as July I've already gotten into, so hopefully right at the beginning of August I'll get one of these going for July. And we are back into the list now. Next movie is called Held. And Held is, I put it at 3 stars. We got, as it says here, couples alien marriage is put to the test when they are held hostage in an isolated vacation rental. So I'm actually going to drop this movie, guys. This is another one that my daughter introduced me to. And this is one of those, the more I thought about it, the less I liked it. So it just didn't work for me. We again, they're out, they're renting this place, and suddenly it's they try to leave and they're locked in, and there's a voice that's telling them everything that they're doing, and they're threatening harm to them, and they're trying to escape this house. And it's an interesting premise, but it didn't work for me as well as I'd hoped. So I'm gonna go back 2.5 stars on Held. My initial premise, and a lot of times what I'll do, guys, is I'll just put 3 stars on it and say, okay, it was I kind of liked it, I kind of didn't. And then after I think about it, I'll come back to it and change it either up or down, one way or the other. The next movie was called Spin Me Round. And this one is, I'm trying to remember what the premise of this one is. I have 2.5 stars on it. Let me go back, and sorry guys, I'm having a little bit of issue here. Let's see, what's Spin Me Round. All right, Spin Me Round. This one is that's right. Okay, this movie. So this young lady right here, this is Aubrey Plaza, who's fantastic in everything. But in this movie, this young lady right here, she is, of course, that's Allison Brie. She plays Amber, who she's a manager of a restaurant chain that's a lot like Olive Garden. I can't remember if it's no, it's not called Olive Garden, but it's a lot like Olive Garden from everything that we're told in the movie. And she's a manager of one of the chains, one of the franchises, and she wins a trip to the headquarters, which is in Italy, to learn at the feet of the master, so to speak, the people who are the higher ups of the restaurant. And it's definitely a weird situation happening. I'll not spoil it in case you do want to see it. 2.5 stars for me. It's a comedy. It didn't quite work all the time. It was kind of herky jerky for me in that. Well, not herky jerky. Let me put it this: I wasn't a big fan of the main character, and that kind of took away from me took away from the film for me in this case. And I don't always have to like the main character, but in this case, I don't know, something about it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then the situation maybe got a little too outlandish and didn't quite fit the things I thought were going to happen. And not that that's always something to knock the movie for, but I just didn't think it worked in this case. So 2.5 for Spin Me Round. The next movie, guys, is the remake White Men Can't Jump. And as you can see, I did not care for this movie. So in this case, we got Jack Harlow plays the Woody Harrelson role. He's a rapper, if you didn't know who Jack Harlow is. Sinqua Walls or Wallace, he plays the Wesley Snipes role. He's pretty good. Jack Harlow is okay. He's actually not bad, but the jokes all fall flat to me. And the story, it's not cohesive. It's kind of episodic. And then his love story really doesn't work, which is a big problem because that kind of it seems to be what the movie wants to hang his hat on at the end of the movie. We get, his love interest is played by in the movie, out the movie. She's long stretches where she's not in the movie. She's got a pretty long resume here of good stuff here, but she's out of the movie for such a long time that we don't really get a feel for their relationship, their chemistry. We don't feel it. We don't get the same sense of empathy that the movie wants us to have. And so then what happens at the end, it's almost meaningless, and then it becomes doubly so because the lesson or the message of the movie is flipped from the first movie, almost flipped from the original movie. Not that it has to have the exact same thing as the first movie, but it doesn't work in this movie. What works a little bit better is the relationship between Kamal. It's not Wesley Snipes' character. Is not these guys have different names. Between his character and his wife, played by Tiana Taylor, R&B singer and slash video director and now movie director. If you don't know who she is, and just a quick look at her, that's her there. She was in the second Coming to America, the terrible one. She was in that as an actress, but their relationship works better because much more time is spent on it. But the movie as a whole doesn't really work. The basketball is lackluster, nothing really spectacular. And I would say that if you put them together against Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson, they might be better basketball players as a whole. I just don't think the choreography of their games really was up to par. If you're a basketball fan, if you watch the first one, you know that Woody Harrelson absolutely is a basketball player and Wesley Snipes is not. But in any event, I did like that movie much better. So 2 stars for the remake of White Men Can't Jump. Again, it doesn't have to do everything the original does, even though I'm a fan of that one. It just didn't work. Whatever they were trying to do, it just didn't gel. So I'm not one of those people who you can't touch the classics, but it do better. That's all I'm gonna say for that. Next movie I watched was Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, and this one I watched the movie swap with Tiana. And for this one, it didn't quite work with me. Again, messaging was just totally lost. I hated Lindsay Lohan's character most of the movie. And again, I'll let you watch that with Tiana, that movie swap with her, and we'll talk more about it. 2.5 stars from me for Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. And in between the movies that I watched for that swap, I went to the theaters with the wife and I saw Fast X, and you can see here it has 5 stars on it. This is not The Godfather. This is not Citizen Kane. This is not Jaws. This is not Back to the Future. This is not on the level of any of those movies. So why did I give it 5 stars? I give it 5 stars because this movie is so bad that it is awesome. It is unbelievably fun. It's stupid beyond belief and just ridiculous at every turn. Jason Momoa is really good in the movie, so I did enjoy him. I enjoyed the whole movie because I go to the Fast and Furious movies for exactly that, for a bunch of stupidity and ridiculous stunts. And I got it in spades. Fast X, if we're ranking it in the franchise somewhere, I would definitely say it's better than Fast 9. For a lot of people I know, they were kind of turned off by Fast 9 and going to space. I love going to space because it was just what I wanted, something really dumb. And Fast 10 gave it to me. So 5 stars there, an ironic 5 stars, I guess we'll call that. So not a real 5-star movie. The other movie I watched for the movie swap with Tiana was Atomic Blonde. Charlize Theron action flick, 4 stars from me. Next is Dynamite Shaolin Heroes. And this one, 3.5 stars, 1970s action, martial arts flick. One of those movies I grew up on, just felt like watching again. And in this case, as you can see, in Qing Dynasty, surviving retainers of the Ming Dynasty swears with blood to restore their country. So yeah, it's kind of a revenge flick, but it like most of those movies, and it's fun. Got some really good action scenes. 3.5 stars for Dynamite Shaolin Heroes. And yeah, every now and again, I'll just throw in a martial arts flick. I get withdrawal symptoms. You got to have one every so often. Next was Secret Magic Control Agency, and this was actually better than I thought it was going to be. This is like a super low budget animated flick, and this one we watched toward the end of the school year. So this is the last week of school, last 2 weeks of school, and and I put this one on. And these two right here, the brother and sister, they are actually Hansel and Gretel. And Hansel is he's a charlatan. He just goes around con man kind of guy and living on the edges, on the outskirts. And this is not set modern day, by the way. This is set way back when. Um, Gretel is she's like a government agent, and it is, yes, the Secret Magic Control Agency, where her agency is basically in charge of all the magic from fairy tales, and some of it gets in the hands of the wrong person, and they got to go out and save the day. So fun movie, 3 stars. Again, probably a better time passer than anything else. Next movie that I watched was spin, spin, spin. All right, the next movie I watched was Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and I did have a good time with this one. Didn't love it, not as much as the first movie, but it is solid. 3.5 stars. I'm not sure what all the hatred is about. I went in kind of expecting a goofy superhero movie, and based on the first one, and that's what I got out of this one. And I thought the story was pretty solid. Helen Mirren was amazing as always. So that is always a plus. So I had a good time with that. Her and Lucy Liu really just kind of hamming it up, and I had a good time with that. So 3.5 stars for Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Not sure if we're gonna get another Shazam. Looks like they're rebooting everything at DC. So we'll see how that plays out. If Zachary Levi is safe or if he's been fired already, guys, let me know. I don't know. Another trip to the theater here. The Little Mermaid, 3.5 stars for me. I did an actual video review of that one. The long, short story of it is basically it's the animated film stretched out way too far. The animated movie is, I think, 90, 95 minutes, something like that. And this one goes 2 hours and 15 minutes for no real reason. 30, 40 minutes could have definitely been shaved off of that. Singing was pretty great from our star Halle Bailey, not Halle Berry, but Halle Bailey as the new Little Mermaid. The hatred that was coming her way is undue, of course, but as an actress, she was solid, and she's been acting before, so this is not new to her. Um, Daveed Diggs as Sebastian was pretty good. Aquafina was okay. The real star of the movie for me was Melissa McCarthy as Ursula, but they undermined her because you could not see her during the film's climactic scene because it was filmed so dark. And I did a little reading up about this because this is not the first movie that I've had this problem with. And what it seems to be is that cinematographers, they're being really artsy, but to the detriment of their films. Um, what I mean by that is a lot of times they're trying to use natural lighting, and not necessarily real natural lighting, but what a scene would naturally look like. So if there's no source of natural light, they're not going to put one in there for the audience. And I get it artistically. I understand you're trying to be realistic, but in the case of a movie, you should actually want the people to see the movie. And in this case, I could not see her, even though, there are shots where her face is taking up 3/4 of the screen, and I can barely see her. Or when they pull the camera back, you can see the outline of her body and the outline of the ship that she's fighting against. But that's about it. Details are lost, and it's just a frustrating experience to sit there and look up at the screen and just see black and hear noise and just see barely flashes of color. And then on top of that, the battle's kind of short. I thought that really just kind of took me out of the movie. Overall, though, it was a solid movie up to that point. So 3.5 stars is where I stick with it. If the movie had been A, shorter and lit better, and B, lit better, it could have been a 4 star or even better movie than that. But those are my big issues with it. So, cinematographers out there, I get it. I understand, if there's, if all you got is a sliver of moonlight, well, that's what I want my movie to look like. Artistically, I get it, from the standpoint of your audience actually being able to see and understand your movie. I don't, or discern what's happening on the screen. Next movie I watched was Airplane. And Airplane is a movie I've seen, I don't know, maybe a dozen times in my life. One of my favorite spoofs of all time. I decided to show it to my daughter, my youngest one. And she was just kind of like, it's okay. So that kind of hurt my heart, but I still love Airplane. 5 stars for me. No need to really go in depth on that. It's just hilarious. Um, Watch it. The next movie was, you see here, it's called Zombie Flesh Eaters, but it's really called Zombie in America. In other places, it's called Zombie Flesh Eaters. And then, of course, Old Boy here. These are the two movies I watched for my movie swap with Ken of Mid-Level Media, or Kenny Levels, or Daddy Levels, whatever you want to call them. And I really enjoyed Zombie. 3.5 stars. And also, of course, Old Boy is just a favorite of mine. So 5 stars there. Next movie I watched was The Redeem Team. And if you're not a basketball fan, stay away. This is the documentary about the Redeem Team. Most people are familiar with the Dream Team, which was Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all those guys back in 1992 when NBA players were first allowed in the Olympics. Well, they ran through the competition, and then it happened again in 96 and 98. Eventually, Team USA lost in the Olympics. And since we just could not have that happen, we went and had the Redeem Team. And the Redeem Team was Kobe Bryant was part of this team, and Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, and lots of other NBA stars. And they basically were trying to regain the glory of the Team USA basketball. They wanted to be together as a team, because one of the problems with USA basketball is that those teams were often kind of just thrown together a couple of weeks before the Olympics, and it was like, hey, go win. And they're playing against teams who had been playing together for years. And that makes a difference in sports. And it didn't make as much of a difference early on from the Dream Team first few teams, because the talent discrepancy was so great. But as that gap closed, it became apparent that your team needs to be together and learn each other before they can act. That 3.5 stars, solid documentary on the Redeem Team. Next was The Meg. I had not seen The Meg, and this one, of course, Jason Statham. They find a megalodon, which is an ancient shark. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically the predecessor to the shark. That's a lot bigger. The great white shark, that is. It's a lot bigger. And so it's Jaws with a bigger shark, and it's dumb. It's fun. 3 stars. I'll see the sequel. I'm not gonna pay to go see the sequel either, so I don't think I am. Just fun with this one. I also went and watched Jumanji. I had seen Jumanji before, and it had been for years and years and years that I hadn't seen it. And my daughter wanted to watch it one night, so we just put on Jumanji. Solid movie, 3.5 stars. As I've heard some other people say, you forget that this is not a comedy, and that's because Robin Williams is in it. You forget that he's actually playing a kind of serious role. And of course, this is the board game that comes to life and all sorts of things. The CGI is kind of wonky all these years later. This came out in 95. But to be honest with you, I remember in 1995, the CGI was wonky then. It wasn't hailed as a special effects masterpiece or anything, but it was just fun movie. 3.5 stars for Jumanji. And we're going to close out May with Jungle Beat, the movie. And this one was 2.5 stars. Again, really solid premise, but it didn't execute it well at all. I thought this one could have been really good. We get some animals in the jungle. They're just kind of doing their thing, and all of a sudden realize that they can speak English, they can talk. And the reason is because there's an alien who has a special device that whenever he gets in their vicinity, they can talk. He gives them the power of speech, as it says here. But of course, he needs to get home. And then, of course, there's some other people who are after the alien. So we get a lot happening that way. Uh, so pretty solid, I wouldn't say solid, pretty, really good premise, not executed well, but it's still probably a solid time passer for the young ones. 2.5 stars for Jungle Beat, the movie. There's a second one out there I haven't watched yet. Maybe not. Maybe next time. I have kids and kids to and a day off. So little kids, that is, and not a day off, but a day where I don't have to teach because of maybe it's the end of the year or something like that. Who knows? Next movie I watched was also one I showed them. This was Trolls, and I believe this was the actual last day of school right here. This was Trolls, and I had seen this before. Really solid movie, 3.5 stars for me. I actually like Trolls 2 better, but I do have fun with this one, and it's just colors everywhere and lots of cool songs, lots of cool pop songs, and there is, yeah, it's just fun. It's got a lot in common with Happy Feet, to be honest with you, but I like this far better than Happy Feet, and I'll save that rant for another day. Which I just don't like that movie. But 3.5 for Trolls, so I do like this one. Um, I For my movie swap, I watched The Commitments, and I'm sorry to the person I'm drawing a blank for that I watched this movie for, but it was a solid movie. 3 stars for The Commitments, but definitely go check that movie swap out. It was whoever I had on after after Ken. I'm trying to remember who that was. It was whoever I had on after Ken. Um, Solid movie for The Commitments, and I watched a movie on my own called Rosaline. And well, no, I take that back. This was another daughter recommendation. Rosaline is Romeo's girlfriend before Juliet, and we meet them as they're breaking up, as uh, Romeo and Rosaline are kind of breaking up, or we see the end of their relationship, and she's trying to get him back, and it's not funny, guys. That's the big problem. So maybe the worst movie so far. So the worst scored here, 1 star for me. I couldn't stand this movie. So I would say skip it. But if you want to see it, the comedy might work for you. The next movie was The Feast, and this was one that I think I recommended this one. I decided to watch it one night, and we see this young lady in the poster right here. It's just hired to work a dinner party basically for this rich family, super duper rich family. And lo and behold, they start dying or getting severely injured by, as the day goes on, as the party goes on. And they're trying to figure out what's happening with them. And it just, I don't know. Another one of those where the performances were okay. The directing, the storytelling was not up to par. 2 stars for me on The Feast. The next movie after The Feast was a movie called The Strays. So The Strays is not Strays that's coming out. I know there's one about dogs, I believe, that's coming out called Strays. This is not that. This is The Strays. It's a horror flick, and I'm actually going to bump it up a bit. I would say a 2.5 star instead of a 2 star movie. What's happening here? Excuse me, guys. Sorry. What's happening here is this lady here, she's moved away from where she was at the beginning of the movie. When we see her, she's going through some hard times. She's the only black woman in an all white neighborhood, and they're just giving her grief. She kind of moves away. Fast forward a few years, she's a principal at a school, and the guy you saw in the picture is a janitor at the school, and seems to be out to get her. And at first, she's trying to haunt him, or she thinks he's haunting her. She thinks he's a ghost, and that's kind of the issue with the movie, is that the movie, it leans into her thoughts on it, but so we're not really sure if he's real or he's not real, but not in a good way. It's in a way that kind of harms the movie. It's kind of makes the tonal shifts here a little bit jarring. They don't quite work as well. Then we get a bit heavy-handed with the messaging towards the end of the film. So 2.5 stars for The Strays. And I believe that finally takes us into... No, we've been in June, guys. Woo. So next movie up is The Mother. And The Mother is a Netflix action movie with J-Lo. And she is an assassin. And like it says here, she has come out of hiding to protect her daughter that she gave up years before. Solid flick, nothing great, nothing spectacular. J-Lo, not one of her best performances, but not one of her worst. Maybe the most physical performance she's had to give, along with maybe with Enough and believe it or not, Hustler, because that is a physical performance. She's not as good as she was there. Solid movie, 3 stars for me for The Mother. But it is, I will say, forgettable, because I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what happens in that movie, other than I do remember the end, which I guess is a good thing more than anything. Next up is Stretch, where I watched a good deal of Asian movies in preparation for Ryan's Asian cinema stream that I was on. And Yojimbo was the first one that I watched. I had never seen Yojimbo before, and had a good time with it. 3.5 stars, solid movie, Akira Kurosawa. And in this case, the draw here is that I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 4 stars. The draw is that we're never really sure who's the good guy. I mean, we have a character that we're following, but he doesn't really always seem like a good guy. So that kind of keeps us guessing, keeps us going, and pulls us through the movie. Definitely go ahead and check that out. Check the replay on Ryan's stream. That was a fantastic stream. We got into a lot of Asian cinema. Yojimbo, 4 stars. Next was not an Asian movie. It was Kicking and Screaming, soccer movie from 2005 with Will Ferrell, and he's a coach. Well, he's not. He's really not a coach. His dad is a big time, or was a big time, but he's a soccer coach in town of the best team. That's a championship winning team, and Will Ferrell plays his son, and he's never been good enough for his dad. So he decides he's going to coach his own soccer team. And it is Little Giants, but with soccer. Pretty good movie, nothing great. 3 stars there. So I'll recommend it on that level. And how you feel about Will Ferrell, use that as a guide. I went to the theater with my two daughters to see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I loved every minute of this one. I had a big review planned out, and laptop did not cooperate with me, guys, so that got lost in the shuffle. Didn't want to redo that, but I will say that it is an amazing film. I like it even better than the first, which before I walked in the theater that day was my very favorite Spider-Man movie of any sort. So this right now is in that top spot. There's so much to see in this one. We meet Gwen, of course. We catch up with her back in her own universe, and Miles in his, and they're having issues on both ends, and the storytelling is fantastic, and the art one, it steps it up a level from the first one, which is hard to believe because that was something we had never seen before. But this time, it's even more a part of the storytelling than the first time. So I mean, whenever you look at the screen, there could be a million things happening, or one thing, and that one thing is so poignant that it kind of sinks in immediately. Whatever emotion the movie is trying to get you to have, and at 2 hours 20 minutes, I could have watched 2 hours and 20 minutes more. So I'm really looking forward to Beyond the Spider Verse next year. My favorite movie of the year so far. The Witch Part One, The Subversion. That was another Asian movie that I watched. I don't think I bought this one up on the Asian stream, but it is a lot. Has a lot a lot to do with not a lot to do, but a lot in common with with Logan, the movie, the last Wolverine movie, Logan. Um, in this case, we got this young girl here. She's in this school for special kids, so to speak, and she has a special ability, and something goes haywire right at the beginning of the movie. She loses her memory. Fast forward a few years, she's been adopted, and then she does have the power. She understands that she has it, but she's been kind of kept under wraps. And being a teenager, she uses it in public one day, and that alerts all those people who were after her at the beginning of the movie. They're now coming after her again, and of course, she has to figure out that she's on the run and can she beat those people? It's a really fun movie. 3.5 stars for The Witch Part One. It's a version a bit slow in parts, which is why it's not higher. Next, after that is First Love. This was another Asian movie. This one, Takashi Miike. If you're familiar with him, he's got so many crazy movies, and this is one of those. And here we got this guy who's a boxer, and she is a prostitute, and it's a lot of true romance in this movie. If you're familiar with that movie, they basically get caught up in the drug game kind of by accident, and everybody is after them. And even this kind of looks like it has something to do, or like it's been inspired by true romance, and it's a pretty solid movie. 3 stars for First Love. I could be persuaded to push that up to 3.5, but again, a little bit slow in some parts, and didn't quite work as well as I would have hoped. The next movie was another Asian movie. This was Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance, Sword of Vengeance. I had never seen Lone Wolf and Cub, even though it came out in 1972, and I really enjoyed this one. This is the first movie in the franchise. I forget how many there are, 5 or 6 or something like that. And Lone Wolf basically is this guy here. He's the Shogun's executioner, but things have gone wrong. He's being framed. He's being told he's disloyal, and that is punishable by death. So of course he doesn't want that to happen. So he's kind of on the run, and he's on the run with his son, who's a baby. So he's toting his baby around and doing samurai stuff all at the same time, and it is a blast to watch. As you can see here, maybe you can see that here, but it's 83 minutes long. So really short, quick watch, but just a ton of fun. 4 stars for Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. I'm looking forward to getting into the rest of the franchise because that was just a blast. Another one, Asian movie I watched, Memories of Murder. I hadn't seen that one either. I had it in my collection. I've had it for at least a year, maybe 2 years. I'm trying to remember if I picked it up last year in a Criterion sale or the year before, but I hadn't watched it, and finally decided to go give this one a go. Bong Joon-ho, the director, Parasite and Okja, and this one we get a murder that these two cops here are investigating, and lots of twists and turns in it. 4 stars for me for Memories of Murder. The next is The Good, the Bad, the Weird. Now this one served a double purpose. I watched it for the Asian cinema stream that I mentioned, and I also watched it for Movie Swap. This one was with Jessica Johnson. and this she recommended this one actually. And in this movie, it's really a spoof or a satire of westerns, and I really had a fun time. Go check that out. That movie swap out 4 stars for me for the good, the bad, the weird. I had two movie swaps that week. Another movie that was recommended to me. This was Life Force, and that was recommended by Dimension Scott. And Life Force, I'm gonna put this in that category that I have Fast X in. It's 5 stars here, but it's an ironic 5 stars. I loved it, even though it was bad. It was so good, it's awesome. So bad, it's awesome, I should say. Dimension, he genuinely loves the movie, and shout out to him. So it was interesting having a conversation with him though, because we liked it, but for different reasons, or we were coming at it from different angles. And go check that out. But yeah, 5 stars, ironically for me, for Life Force. The movie I had Jessica watch was Slight. And it's essentially turns into a superhero origin story. When I recommended it to her, I had it at 4 stars, but I dropped it back to 3.5 upon a rewatch. Still a good movie. And check out reasons why I dropped it. Check out that swap again. And the movie that I recommended for Dimension was Battle Royale, and it's fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Very the movie The Hunger Games kind of owes it everything. 4.5 stars from Battle Royale. Again, go watch that movie swap with Dimension to see why I feel that way. The next movie is 13 the Musical, and this was one that I just was not feeling. Another one my daughter just kind of clicked on one day, and I was walked in the room and she was watching it, so I stayed and watched it. And we get this kid here. He's moved to New York, as you can see. He moved to New York. I take it back. Moved from New York to Indiana, and is having a hard time adjusting, and then falls in with all these kids, and it's basically Glee for 13-year-olds. The difference is that the sexualization that's happening here, it feels a little more icky than it does in Glee. I get it. The kids in Glee are kids. Also, they're 17, 16, 17 years old. But when they're this young, it's even more jarring. So didn't enjoy that. And on top of that, it's just cheesy and corny as all get out. 1.5 stars for 13 the Musical. Again, bad messaging as far as forget about the sexualization, just the messaging overall just didn't work for that particular movie. The next was The Last Duel. This was another movie I watched for. I jumped way ahead. Next movie I watched was actually A Man Called Otto. This was the Tom Hanks movie, and he's kind of a grumpy old man in the neighborhood. His wife has passed away, but he befriends a family that has just moved in across the street, and we get to learn a lot about him and the problems of various people in the neighborhood and various friendships that he had in the past. Solid watch. Not one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies, but pretty good. 3 stars for A Man Called Otto. Bad Words was the next movie I watched, and I watched this one for movie swap with Jay Stu, and not Jay Stu, AJ Reacts. That just tells me I need to get Jay Stu on. That's what that tells me. But Bad Words I watched with AJ for AJ Reacts, and I really enjoyed Bad Words. I'm gonna go ahead and bump that up to 4 stars. This was the movie I recommended for him, and it was one of those ones where I had it at 4 stars, which is why I recommended it really, and then talked to him about it after, or watched it again, talked to him about it, dropped it back to 3.5, and then thought about it some more, and now I'm back up to 4. I really have a good time with this movie. And the movie I recommended for him to watch, or he recommended me to watch, was The Last Duel. And this one, solid movie, 3 stars for me, and not a great one. I had some issues with the pacing and the way the story is told. It's told a lot like Rashomon, where we get 3 different characters and we get 3 different points of view, but it just doesn't quite. I don't feel it's necessary for this movie. Let me put it that way. I thought it was movie because 2 of the stories are largely the same. Ridley Scott, as you can see, directed that one. The third act was by far the best, And this young lady here, Jodie Comer, is fantastic. All the acting is really good, but she is fantastic in the movie. So yeah, 3 stars for me for The Last Duel. And that brings me to this movie here, Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox. And this one, we meet the Flash as he's in a battle with Reverse Flash and at the beginning of the movie, and he seems to have won, but the price he pays is that he's gone back in time and finds himself in an alternate timeline and where his mom is still alive. If you know the Flash character, his mom has passed away, and now he has to figure out if he's going to save the day in this timeline as well as, or go back to where his mom is not there. And it's really well done. 4 stars for me. One of the best DC animated movies. If you're into DC animated, go ahead and check it out. As you can see here, 75 minutes, really tight. Of course, we get Batman, we get Superman at some point, and that 75 minutes is key. A lot of DC animated movies run in this area, 75 to 85 minutes, and this is a movie I thought might have benefited from being maybe 10 minutes longer, but it still works as it is. And it does provide the foundation for the live action Flash, which as of the end of June, I had not seen, but I have seen here early in July. So look forward to my thoughts on that one next month. But that again, 4 stars for the next one. Money Shot, the Pornhub story. This one is a documentary. It is it's on Netflix, so I watched it there. It is early parts, the history of Pornhub, how they got started and how they got popular. And then the latter part is kind of the downfall, even though, of course, it's still around, it's plenty popular, but it's the downfall of their relationship with content creators and why that is. And that's the more fascinating part for me. And of course, we get, the rise in OnlyFans is also kind of weaved into that last half of the story. 3.5 stars. If you have any interest at all, give it a look. If not, skip it. And that's for most titles, but definitely for this one. We're the Millers is the next movie I watched. And in this movie, I had seen this movie before. This was a rewatch. Jennifer Aniston, of course, is there. And Jason Sudeikis, however, is the main character. He's a small-time drug dealer and gets caught up in a situation. He owes some people some money. So he is forced to kind of do this job where he has to go to Mexico and bring back a bunch of weed. And pretty much gets the idea that it would be a lot easier and smoother if he had a family. He's single. He does not have a family. So he hires all of these people to be his family. And it's a pretty good comedy. Lots of laughs in it. 3.5 stars for me. Catherine Hahn and Nick Offerman as a couple that they meet out on the road. They steal the show for me. They're fantastic in We're the Millers. So if you've seen it, let me know if you liked it. I always get the feeling it's one of those movies I think is funny, but I think other people don't. I don't know. Let me know. Next was a pair of movies from the 1930s. This is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and The Public Enemy. I had never seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's a movie that John from Platt X2 recommended to me. And I had a good time watching this movie. And again, go check out that movie swap to see my full thoughts on that. And The Public Enemy is a movie I recommended for him from 1931, James Cagney. And that is 4.5 stars for me. Again, go watch the movie swap with John from Platt X2. I'm just kind of giving you a bigger picture of it. Frank Capra directed, and of course James Stewart right here. And then The Public Enemy. If you're into gangster movies, you might know this movie. If you're not, you might not. But it is a classic of the genre. And there's Cagney right there playing our main character. And the next movie is a movie called Hypnotic. Now I have the wrong one up here. I did not watch this movie, guys. I have to change this. I did not watch this movie. So I watched another movie called Hypnotic. And Let me see if I can find that one. That other movie called Hypnotic is a Netflix movie. I think it's a Netflix movie. Came out. Uh, I want to say it came out last year. Is this the one I watched? Let's see. Yes, this is the movie. Yes, this is the movie I watched with Kate Siegel. Kate Siegel. So I'm gonna go ahead and grade this movie 2.5 stars, and I will add that to my diary a little bit. And she plays a woman who's dealing with the breakup, and she's unemployed also, and her best friend recommends this guy as a therapist, and she goes, and of course he decides he's going to do hypnotherapy. And once he does that, strange things start happening, including people start getting hurt and people start dying. And so we got to figure out if he's an evil psychiatrist or is she going crazy? What is actually happening in there? So 2.5 stars for that Hypnotic, not this one. I haven't watched this one. I'm going to watch it. And the last movie that I watched in June is Cha Cha Real Smooth. This was a cool, a cute comedy here. Uh, we got this guy right here, Cooper Rafe. He plays Andrew, and he's out of college and he works at a fast food joint. And he's pining to get back with his college girlfriend who's kind of moved on from him, but he doesn't know it yet. And we know it, so it's not really a spoiler. Um, he just happens to go to a bar mitzvah for somebody he knows one night, and he meets these two people. This is, of course, Dakota Johnson, and her name is Domino in the movie, and her daughter is Lola, played by Vanessa Burghardt, and she is autistic, and of course, again, this is her mom. So at this bar mitzvah, everybody's just kind of sitting around, and how kids do. And Cooper, our guy Cooper, he gets the party started. He gets people up dancing and having a good time, and he's even able to connect with Lola, which no one seems able to do other than the mom. And that, of course, means that he and the mom are going to take a liking to, and we go full rom-com from there. Pretty decent watch. Nothing great. Gets predictable though, as rom-coms tend to do. So 3 stars for Cha Cha Real Smooth, and that is it. Finally, we have made it all the way through June, and all the movies that I watched from March to June. Really long video, almost an hour and a half. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate it. Thank you. If you didn't, you just clicked on. I also thank you guys that are not watching anymore. But thanks for sticking in there. And next month we'll do this right at the end of the month, so it won't take so long. Just that's all I got for you guys. That's all I have for you on this one. I will catch you on the next one. My voice is torn up, so I'm gonna say bye.